Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week, our hosts will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their business to success in the ever-competitive business climate.
Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Today, a very special guest. Mark Struczewski is known as Mr. Productivity. He is a Houston-based productivity coach and the host of Mr. Productivity podcast. He brings over 1,300 episodes of experience to help leaders like you conquer being overwhelmed. Drawing from his daily running routine and commitment to continuous learning, he offers practical strategies to overcome distractions and achieve clarity. Mark, welcome to the show.
Lance, thank you so much for being here. I am honored.
Yeah. Before we get into what you do, tell us how you got here. Are you from a family of entrepreneurs? Are you the first? Where does this entrepreneurial spirit come from?
Oh, I am so the first. My journey started back when I was fired from my corporate job back in July 2005. And I had that decision. Do I go back and get another job in corporate America, or do I go out on my own? And I'm like, you only live once. Let's go the entrepreneurial / solopreneur route. And that's how I got here.
Okay, beautiful. I got to mention your shirt. I love the Glock on there. I'm a Glock boy as well, so I appreciate that. It reminds me of there's keep coming these signs from God are telling me, please get your chest holder because you're hiking in the dark a lot. So I'm going to do that.
Yes.
What inspired you to become a productivity coach?
Well, as is most cases for people, someone else saw that in me. So after I lost my job, I was kind of like out in the ocean with a canoe that was leaking water. No, in other words, finances. And I was just spending money willy-nilly, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I had a call with a coach, and I normally identify as Tigger from Winnie the Pooh, but I was having an Eeyore moment. And he goes, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Well, I want to be a speaker. I want to teach. I want to coach, but I don't know what my topic should be." He goes, "Why don't you talk about productivity?" And I remember saying to him, "Wow, that's weird. Why would you say that?" He goes, "I know a lot of people, and you are one of the most naturally gifted, productive people I know. You should share that gift with the world." And at first I'm like, who's going to pay me to teach them how to be more productive? And the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah. So what experiences do you think led to that approach to helping others? What previous ones sort of led you to that besides this person telling you?
I was raised as a latchkey kid. My late parents had only had me. I think when they had me, they go, "Oh, that's it. We can't take it anymore." But I was raised in a time, I was born in 1965, and as a latchkey kid, for those in the audience who don't know, means I had a key to my house, and I would get home from school before my parents got home from work. And I had better do my chores correctly before they walked in the door, and I better have my homework done correctly before I walked in the door, before I went outside and played with my friends. And I think that was the foundation for me to get into productivity. We didn't know I was going to be Mr. Productivity, obviously at age 7 or 8, but I had to give all credit to my parents.
So what about corporate? I mean, the corporate world influence you to be a productive? Were you a production manager? I mean, is there education that, I get the background with the parents, but.
No, most of my corporate career was in inventory control management. And, most organizations are not run productively. They're scattered shot, what's the big fire putting on? So when I got out and that coach, saw that in me, I started reflecting back on my corporate jobs. And I'm like, wow, yeah, they could have been way more productive. So I did not come out of any kind of productivity based in the corporate world. I just became that earlier in my life.
Oh, gotcha. All right. And then what led you to podcasting? I mean, 1,300 podcast episodes to me indicates probably you're one of the OGs. I mean, right up there with somebody like Adam. I'm not joking. Adam Carolla, Joe Rogan, Tom Woods. That's a lot of episodes. We've been doing ours since 2017, and we only have about 600. So were you a podcast junkie? What kind of set you on this path?
Well, in the spring of 2017, I happened to see a video from Gary Vaynerchuk, and he said, "The future is voice and audio, and everyone needs to have a podcast." And I went back to my house and typed in those magical words into Google, "How do I start a podcast?" And I launched mine on July 7th, 2017. Now, the reason why I have over 1,300 episodes is around Christmas time 2020, I had this crazy idea. I want to be just like Gary Vee and release an episode every day.
Wow.
Now, he has a team of 15 people. I didn't
Yeah.
have anybody, but I made it until October. So I think I started my streak on Christmas Day 2020, made it till October 2021. Then I burned out. The problem was I was doing 6 or 7 interviews a week. And if a guest canceled on me, I had to stop what I was doing because I promised an episode every day. And I got really lazy with my podcast. I was just trying to get an episode out every day. And so now I'm just doing 1 episode a week. That's a good cadence for me.
There you go. Yeah. All right. Well, I feel now you made me feel better, Mark, because we're trying to do 2 a week. So maybe we'll catch up to you. Probably not though. What do you think has been one of some of your, like, if you had to point to maybe top interview that you've done, or just memorable, something that really resonated with your audience?
Well, my podcast is called the Mr. Productivity Podcast, but my favorite episode had nothing to do with productivity. It's by a guy named John Beatty, and he summited Mount Everest, and he almost didn't make it. And I have always been fascinated by Mount Everest and the people who almost make it, the people who make it. So I reached out to him. I think it was back on his Twitter, and I invited him on my show, and his story was fascinating. And so that was my best episode. As a matter of fact, when I celebrated my 70-year anniversary, I actually re-edited that episode and released it because it is such an incredible episode. I even asked them the question, and that is, how do you go to bathroom on Mount Everest? Because I'm a guy and I want to know stuff like that. And it's pretty fascinating because people don't realize how long you're on the mountain. There are no rest stops. There are no Howleys. I mean, you got it. And it's like 10 below, 20 below, 30 below. I mean, you can't have skin exposed. So very interesting how men and women go to the bathroom on Mount Everest.
Oh yeah, the intricacies of the whole thing. I mean, I'm an extreme hiker in Colorado here. I do very long hikes. My buddy and I were elk hunting a couple weeks ago. We did over 100 miles in 9 days, but it pales in comparison to that. So I love having a guest like that every once in a while on the show for sure. Let's dive back into the motivational insights, the coaching. What do you think your unique approach is to blending practical strategies with motivational insights?
For the longest time, people had told me you got to have something unique about you. And I always struggle with that question. Why am I unique? Oh, okay, I'm bald and whatever. And then I finally realized that I am flexible. So one of the things I do not like is when you hire a coach and they said, you get 2 60-minute coaching calls per month for 6 months. And I'm like, that's great, but what if you only want a 15-minute call? Or what do you want just a 30-minute call? So I crafted a coaching program that allows people to do a 15, 30, 45, or 60. And what happens, they get so many minutes per month. So they can say, well, I want to, let's say 180 minutes, which is 3 hours, and they can divvy up however they want. So I'm trying to figure out what makes me different. And the people who I used to do it the old fashioned way, only 60-minute calls. And people get on and we talk for 10, 15 minutes. They go, okay, I got what I needed. I'm like, well, you have another 30 minutes, another 45 minutes. Like, but I don't need it. And I realized that that's wasting their time and my time trying to make things up. So I decided to go the flexibility route. And because I own my own business, I can and do totally customize a coaching plan for anyone. Now, most people, it's like the 80-20 rule. Mm-hmm. Most people will go with the packages they already have. But some people say, yeah, can you make a package just for me? I'm like, sure, I own the company. I could do whatever I want.
Yeah. I love that. I know we are all technically unique too. It's so funny you mentioned your head. I'm like, look, he's got a bald head. I mean, it's already unique. He's wearing a clock shirt. What are some common? So there's a lot of professionals listen to this show. Obviously, a lot of us in the architecture, engineering, and construction community, and we're always trying to be the most productive as possible. At least our listeners are. So that's one of the reasons I had John, Mark. What are some common challenges that you think our professionals would face when it comes to productivity? And then how do you see them overcoming those productivity obstacles?
Well, a prime example is we're doing this call on Zoom and we are spending so much time in front of screens. And I tell people, I don't care what you do for a living, you need to reduce your screen time. And so I am encouraging people to take what's known as micro breaks. And what that means is you get up from your medium size screen. And then you take a walk outside. Now, when you do this, you don't get on your little screen on your phone. You don't think about what you're going to do. You don't talk to anybody. You just are quiet for 3 to 4, maybe 5 minutes. So here's how it works. When you get up and walk outside, you're getting that blood flowing. All right. Your muscles are going, oh yeah, we're supposed to be moving. And you go outside and you just be present. Now, if it's cold, grab a jacket. If it's hot, stay in the shade. If it's thunderstorm, don't be Benjamin Franklin and hold a metal pole up. But going outside for 3 to 5 minutes will give you such a natural energy bump, which will help you be more productive. I tell the story all the time. I had a client once who told me that they texted me and they said they can see the finish line. And they said, I am so tired. And they go, I know what you're going to tell me, Coach Mark. I know what you're going to tell me. Go take a micro break, but I can see the finish line. I said, look it, go take the micro break. And they hemmed and hawed and hemmed and hawed. And they finally decided, okay, I'm going to trust my coach. Went outside for 5 minutes, came back. And instead of crawling over the finish line, bloodied and bruised, they sailed across like Usain Bolt. They were amazed at the 5-minute break, what it gave them to cross the finish line well, not bloody, and with lots of energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Micro break. I love that.
Right.
Take a micro break. I'm with you.
And here's the key with them. Here's the key is you take them whenever you begin to feel overwhelmed or stressed or any negative emotion. And because there's no drug interventions, take as many as you need. Now, if you got to take like every 5 minutes, well, that's a problem. That's a totally different podcast. But I tell people, whenever you start feeling frustrated and you just want to punch a wall, go outside and just decompress. Allow your brain to take that break.
Yeah. Yeah. What about so we have blue collar listeners here too, and they're already outside. What about them? What would you say for the blue collar folks? What is akin to them for a micro break outside? Should they go inside?
They are outside, but are they outside working, or are they taking time to step away from the project they're working on and just maybe close their eyes, don't get on their phone, do some deep breathing? If you want to take it to another level, this is going to sound weird, especially I know a lot of blue collar workers too. Yeah. Take your shoes and socks off and stand in the ground. You'll be amazed what that does to the inflammation. Now, yeah, I know it's a challenge. You got to take your shoes and socks off or your work boots, but I'm telling you, it's going to make you feel better physically and mentally. And if you're willing to gift yourself this little micro break throughout your day, I promise you, you'll feel much better at the end of the day than if you didn't.
Yeah, grounding. I'm with you. I try to, with my hiking, I try to take a rock nap. Like they're psychedelic. I'm not joking. I think like laying there on a rock in a high alpine area and actually taking a nap and warming and sunning has dramatically changed my life. So I'm with you.
When I first heard about grounding, I'm like, oh, what is it? Earthing, grounding.
Ooh, yeah.
And then I started trying it. And I'm like, I can actually feel the inflammation being sucked out of my body into the earth. And it's just incredible.
It's insane. It's insane. Do you do the sheets? Have you heard of this where people have grounding sheets now so they can plug them in and then it grounds to your your grounding rods in your house and stuff like that?
Well, I've heard that there are grounding mats, grounding sheets, grounding mattresses. The problem is it's really easy to be scammed because you don't know. And I'm like, if you can, go outside, and do it with the real ground. But if you're going to buy grounding sheets or grounding mats, do your research. Don't go to Amazon. I've heard people get grounding mats from Amazon and they weren't feeling anything and they decided to take it apart and like the wires weren't even connected. So if you're going to do that, make sure you do your research, go to a reputable source. You're going to pay a little bit more money, but it's going to work because if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Probably is. Yeah. 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 You mentioned this about the blue collar folks about maybe like shutting off your phone and stuff like that, but it's still very hard to do it. So what are some basics tips you could give for us about managing digital distractions in your life? I'll give one that I do is that I took off my notifications. Like I silence pretty much all my apps for notifications except for just my direct messages from like, my daughter and stuff like that. What kind of tips do you have?
I'm a big fan of gamification. So if you have an iPhone, they probably have it on Android as well, where you have something that tracks your screen time. Try to make it a game. Say, okay, on Monday, I spent this much time on my phone. I'm going to try to beat that. I'm not going to pick my phone up that often. And this way you're competing against yourself. And I'm a competitive kind of guy. So I use an app called Streaks. And even though I've been running almost 2,600 days in a row, I still track it because I like seeing that number go up every day. So a big productivity hack for people is to compete against yourself. Look at your screen time from the day
Mm.
before and go, you know what? I'm going to beat that today. And I'm going to beat it this way. So I picked up my phone 97 times yesterday. I'm going to get under 90 this time. And what happens is every time you pick that phone up, you're like, oh, wait. How many times I picked up my phone? Oh, I want to beat yesterday. I want to beat myself yesterday. It's a psychological thing, but I promise you it works. And if you want to involve other people, you can say, okay, let's reduce our screen time by like 3% or 5%. And then now you're competing and say, whoever wins, I'll buy lunch on Friday or whatever. So make a game of it. Now it's not you doing it on your own. Now you got a buddy.
Yeah, I love that. But it reminds, my girlfriend tracks her steps. And when we were on a date this summer in Aspen, and she was like, I'm at like 19,979 steps. And she's like, I got to get up, and I'm going to get up. And so she finishes. And so I love it, Mark. You're totally right. Like competing against yourself. That's such a brilliant idea. You're a runner, and you often draw parallels from your running to productivity principles. How does that routine inform your coaching methods?
It's about consistency. So when people ask me, you've run at least 1 mile every day since August 29, 2017. How did you get to that many days? I'm like, started with day one, which became day 10, which became 100, 500, 1,000, 2,000. You got to start and you got to be consistent. For example, the body loves consistency. It wants to go to bed at the same time every night, 7 days a week. It wants to get up at the same time every morning, 7 days a week. A lot of people go to bed a decent hour Monday through Thursday, then they stay up real late on Friday and Saturday, and then they wonder why they're dragging on Monday. So what I'm encouraging people to do is practice consistency as much as you can. It may sound boring, but I promise you, your body likes consistency. So eat breakfast at the same time every morning, eat lunch at the same time every morning or every afternoon, eat dinner at the same time. Your body loves consistency. And a lot of people will wonder, well, how when you go on a run, what are you thinking about? I'm not. I put my shoes on, I go for a run. I don't, some days I probably look like a drunk zombie. I don't care. I go at first light. I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm already married to my wife for 21 years. I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm just out there. I'm 59 years young. I feel like I'm in my young 40s. I plan on living and running until age 110. So I'm doing things that are going to help me be more productive, have more energy. I know people who are in their 20s and they look like they're 90 because they don't move. I stay active, and being productive is not only being active, but it's also taking active rests, like those micro breaks. You may say, I'm not doing anything. Actually, you are, because you're actually actively resting. So you have more energy to be more productive. So like the day we're recording this, I like European football. We call it soccer here in America. There's a game my team is playing this afternoon. So I will work up to 2:00 and I will watch the full match guilt-free, because I know that I'm going to have a really productive time up until then. So for me, watching football gives me joy. Joy makes me happy. Happiness makes me more productive. It all works together.
Yeah. It sounds like harmony instead of like a sort of this, I've been struggling with this idea that the old term was work-life balance. And I'm like, it should be a harmony, right? I mean, that's really where we should be at. We have an open studio in our architecture office, which includes our construction firm and then also the architects. And sometimes it can be chaotic just because there's a lot of people on the phones. But we really insist on having an open and studio environment so people learn through osmosis, just pure osmosis. But what actionable advice would you have for somebody who's maybe struggling with prioritizing their tasks in an environment like that?
Start with one. Start with one habit or thing that you can do that's going to make you more productive. The biggest problem I see people do is they're like, oh, they listen to a podcast like this and they're like, okay, I got to do grounding, I got to do micro break, and they get overwhelmed thinking about the 30 things we talk about.
Yeah.
So what I always encourage people on my podcast, and I encourage people to do it on your podcast, And not just this episode. I mean, every episode you do, just pick one thing that you can implement and don't make it a complex thing. Pick something simple. You want that easy win because then you can go, oh, I did this. Well, I'm going to go back and do this and this. And that's called habit stacking. James Clear calls it habit stacking. But just start with one. And it's going to be different for everyone. So Jane may pick this one and John may pick that one. Just pick one simple thing. Get the momentum going for that. Remember the old steam locomotive trains? They started out real slow, but when they got full speed, they can go through like snow drifts and all that stuff. So just pick one thing and get that momentum going.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's just like, how did you do the running? Well, just day one. You just got to do it. Yeah. So when it comes to your clients and their transformation, how do you measure the success of your coaching and podcasting efforts with your clients? Like, what kind of metrics are you using?
The first call we have, which is not part of the coaching program, it's kind of like a deep dive session. Find out what they want. Where do they want to go? Because obviously I got to be able to measure it. So if I was a weight loss guy, which I'm not, but if I was a weight loss guy and someone came to me and says, I weigh 200 now, I want to get down to 180, we can track that. With productivity, it's a little bit different. You know, they could say, I want to reduce my time on my phone 30%. Okay, well, we can start out, like I said earlier, we know where you are on this Monday. By Friday, let's get to here. So before we even start the coaching relationship on a deep dive call, we find out where they want to go and how we can measure it. And before every call, I'm like, okay, so how close are we? I mean, would you rate yourself on a 1 to 10? Are you at a 2? Are you at an 8? How can we go to the next level? Because I think I've had a lot of coaches, we just start out the call, we just chit chat for an hour. The more effective coaches want to know, okay, where are we right now? How close are we to getting your results? But I can't think of a single coach I've ever invested in that actually started out the coach relationship that said, where do you want to go? I want to make $20,000 a month. Okay. How much you making now? Oh, 18,000. Okay. We're not there yet. You got to be able to measure it. So what I do is I nail down that first call with my clients. Where do you want to go specifically? Not vague. I want to be more productive. I want to be better at time management. I want to be less overwhelmed. That's so vague, I can't measure it. And measuring is not just for me as a coach, it's also for the client. So they can say, okay, I started out at a 3, I'm at a 7. I know I'm making progress now.
Yeah, I love that. We're coming up on the half hour here, Mark. You have been a fantastic guest. And there's 2 questions that I ask every guest. The first one is, knowing what you know now, and if you could go back in time to when you first started your coaching business, what is one piece of advice you'd give yourself?
Stop listening to everybody. Just because someone has a podcast, a website, a YouTube channel doesn't mean they're making money. I mean, I know people, my favorite platform is LinkedIn. They have hundreds of thousands of followers and get lots of engagement, but I know they can't pay the rent. So be careful who you listen to.
Beautiful, Mark. If people like what they've heard from you, they want to get in touch with you, they want to follow the podcast, where can they find you? It sounds like LinkedIn is probably one of the primary places.
Well, I always send people to One Stop Shopping. That's my website, MrProductivity.com. You got to spell out the Mr. M-I-S-T-E-R, MrProductivity.com. There you can find out about my blog, my my podcast, my email newsletter. My About page has got some unique things about me. And the link for LinkedIn is at the bottom of my homepage, because on LinkedIn, I'm known as Mark Struczewski. So I just send people to MrProductivity.com, scroll to the bottom, click the LinkedIn link, and then you can connect with me there.
Beautiful. Mark, thanks so much for being on the show today. You've been a fantastic guest. Appreciate your time, buddy.
Thank you, sir.